Hello guys and welcome back to my channel. Today I want to discuss and to share with you the latest patch preview which is happening on the 11th of February 2025. So this is just the preview, but this is like the final patch basically. There might be some small tweaks, but still this is the definitive version. What you can expect from this video, I will discuss basically only the War vs World Zergs updates which could be relevant. So if you are into roaming, this video is not for you. I will not discuss PvP or PvE. I will only discuss War vs World Zerging. So basically this patch is all about reducing the boon ball meta in War vs World. So many boons were like halved in the duration or like deleted. For example, we have no longer alacrity on any class. Also, most of the resistance was cut down or maybe just reduced, and also some might, also some fury. There are many boons which were removed or like the duration was reduced and so on. Let's start. The first change is also maybe the most impactful on the War vs World gameplay in Zerg's fight. So reduced the barrier cap from 50% from maximum health to 25% of maximum health in War vs World only. So maybe if you didn't know, the maximum barrier you could get on your character was half of your maximum HP. So if you were like 20k HP, you could receive up to 10k barrier. Now this was halved and basically you can get only 5k instead of 10k if you run around with 20k maximum HP. So 20k maximum HP is like most of the DPS classes except the Reaper, which have more, but still this is basically 5k HP less on most classes. So this is a huge change, and also barrier is stronger than healing most of the time because you can prevent any damage done by basically augmenting your maximum HP with the barrier. So you don't get one shot thanks to barrier, but this change will be huge because the barrier is shut down a lot. Then we have Relic of the Flock. This is this one, heal yourself and nearby allies after you use a healing skill. Excess healing is converted to barrier. This worked pretty well with the mantras from the Mesmer, for example, or for the Firebrand, because they had low cooldown and you can spam it like once every 10 seconds. Most healing skills otherwise don't have 10 seconds cooldown. Now the cooldown is 20 seconds, so I don't think this relic is worth anymore with the mantras. Maybe we can get something else like Monk for 10% maximum healing, or I don't know, maybe Antitoxin for condition cleanses since the resistance was nerfed. Then Relic of Rivers. I know this relic was really not used a lot in War vs World, but still it found some usage in PvP. I know, like Support Tempest used it in PvP, so maybe we were about to see it in War vs World too. So whenever we dodge, we can get alacrity for 2 seconds, and now this duration is 1 second, so it was halved, and I think maybe this alacrity will be removed later on in War vs World from this relic, because I can see some support classes running this so they can spam more support skills, but I'm not really sure, of course. Then let's start from the first class. I will just skip the PvE only or PvP only. Let's go to War vs World. So Frozen Burst is the skill 3 from the dagger on the Elementalist, of course. It was nerfed on the duration. Transmute Frost was nerfed, so basically they are killing the dagger build for War vs World to support, because Transmute Frost was a huge part of healing and sharing auras and regeneration and also some damage AoE. And also, I mean, this was like whenever you transmuted, you could remove some conditions. You also applied regeneration. With regeneration, you remove condition, you heal. So this cooldown is like a big game changing for this build, because 3 seconds was okay. 6 seconds is like basically you need to be AFK for like 3 more seconds doing nothing on your dagger to transmute the next Frost Aura. And I think this change doesn't make sense, because the class was not overpowered at all, like every support Tempest mostly played the staff already, and also the staff was not the best support build in the game, but still this nerf was unnecessary in my opinion, but we will see, maybe they will revert it. I know 3 seconds maybe it was too strong, but like no, it wasn't too strong, so maybe make it 4 seconds, 6 seconds is just too much. Okay, this skill now is a blast finisher, could be interesting on the Warhorn offhand. Water globe, okay, we don't really need this. Cyclone, they trying to buff the Warhorn for the offhand, of course. The Warhorn only goes offhand. We will get some super speed on the skill 4 from the air on the Warhorn. Nothing really impactful in my opinion. The only Tempest we can play is a staff, and for the support build, I mean, maybe for the DPS something else could come up. We get some buffs also on the spear to do damage. We have the skills from the fire spear which were buffed, blazing barrage, meteor. We can have some damage increase and cooldown reduction. Then we have this skill which was buffed too. And then we have this skill on the earth, nothing really impactful in my opinion. The spear is just too slow, people will move away from the AoEs and you will not damage them. Here we have this trait from the Tempest which was nerfed. Now we grant regeneration and vigor for only 2 seconds instead of 3 seconds in War vs Sword only, but since we spam so many auras, this is not really impactful. Also vigor and regeneration are really present in War vs Sword. This thing is not a big nerf in my opinion. And then everything else for the Elementalist in War vs Sword is done. Let's go to the Engineer. On the Engineer we get a nerf on the Essence of Animated Sense, which is the skill from our shortbow, which granted barrier and also might, and also you see the nerf, reduce the might duration from 8 seconds to 5 seconds, reduce the base barrier from 1200 to 600 or something like that. I mean, the nerfs in the barrier could be big overall in every class, but the barrier maximum was nerfed by the half basically, so now you can only give 25% of maximum HP instead of 50. So even if the barriers your skill will grant is nerfed, I mean it's okay because the barrier cap now is so much easier to reach, so I wouldn't panic to the barrier nerfs, but the barrier nerf, the big barrier nerf was actually the one on the from the 50 to 25. On the skills is not panicking in my opinion. Okay, let's keep going. From the Engineer, Essence of Liquid Wrath, we will get instead of protection we will get resolution, so 33% damage reduction from protection is removed, and it's okay. We get already a lot of protection in War vs Sword. Globe Shot, this skill now immobilizes the first enemy struck, useless in War vs Sword. Acid Bomb, this could be a small buff for Holosmith because it ran the Elixir Gun, and the Elixir Gun, this skill is also unblockable and it leaves an AoE on the ground which pulsing damage on enemies. The first pulse now will do more damage, I don't know how much damage, maybe it's 20% or something like that. It's a small buff for the Holosmith, so it has even more burst. And then we have some other nerfs on the Scrapper. We have Comeback Cure, grant regeneration where you remove a condition from an ally, so the regeneration now comes from 1.5 seconds to just 1 second in War vs Sword only. It's okay, there is a lot of regeneration and we will remove a lot of conditions. Our allies will have permanent regeneration still. Also keep in mind that these durations are without boon duration, so we have a Minstrel which is basically like 50% at least of boon duration, so you need to increase this duration by like 50%, if not more. Then Bulwark Gyro, reduce the initial base barrier and also the pulsing base barrier and also the pulsing barrier's healing power multiplier. This was a big nerf, I mean, but still, as I already said, the barrier cap now is much lower, so in my opinion you can still reach it pretty easily, but we will see. We have a small buff to this skill of the Holosmith. This shouldn't be really impactful Okay, this trait, which granted Might and Fury in War vs Sword whenever we performed the Blast Finisher and Leap Finisher, now also works for Whirl Finisher, but will no longer grant Fury, but just Might, and also the Might duration was reduced. And then we have no more Alacrity on Crisis Zone, which is the mecha command on the Mechanist, of course. Let's jump into the Guardian. So the first nerf was on the skill 5 on the Spear, increased the cooldown from 20 seconds to 25 seconds in PvP and War vs Sword. I mean, it's 5 seconds more on your skill 5 on the Spear. It's okay, it's a nerf, but shouldn't be really impactful for the Dragon Hunter DPS. Then the other nerfs are basically on the... Okay, this is the Vibrant trait, which I love. Basically, whenever you CC'd an enemy, you could grant resistance to allies. This trait had a 1 second internal cooldown, which was maybe too low. Now 5 seconds is a huge, but still they want to remove resistance or basically to reduce it from War vs Sword, and it's okay. Maybe 5 seconds is too much, but it's okay. I guess it can be okay. We don't really need to have resistance all the time, like maybe we need it, but maybe we shouldn't, I mean. Then other nerfs are on Willbender, which was not really a Zerg class, like big Zerg, like in 50 vs 50, Willbenders had no place. Maybe in a smaller scale they were super strong, but for bigger scale, no. It got a nerf on the F1, F2 and F3. Also on this trait, and also Phoenix Protocol, which was the trait which granted Alacrity. Now, instead of granting Alacrity, it grants Resolution, and this Alacrity could be shared with the trait on Virtues. Now you can share the Resolution instead of the Alacrity, so this is another Alacrity removal. About the Mesmer, we have Illusion of Life. As I already said in a previous video, you could bypass the downed state after the duration ended by adding some barrier to the allies which were going down. So this will be changed. Now you will go down if you don't kill any enemies in the duration of the Illusion of Life, which is 15 seconds. So barrier will not save you anymore, and also the cooldown was increased from 75 to 90 seconds. I don't know if this skill will be still played. I think it will be still pretty good, I mean, but we will see. And I don't even know if Mesmer will be played a lot after all these nerfs. Let's get to the next one. Okay, Illusionary Defense. This trait now only applies protection when using the second shatter skill, so we will not have protection on every shatter, as previously you can see here. Increase the base duration, the base protection duration from 1 second to 4 seconds. Okay, so basically during the stream, the game devs just said that previously this trait was just too many protection applications, so it was hard to counterplay. So now you just give protection once, and if it gets stripped, you are basically RIP. Increase the protection per clone from 1 second to 2 seconds in PvE and War vs Sword, and from 0. Okay, PvP we don't need. And then we have the nerf on Bountiful Disillusionment. Reduce the vigor duration from 8 seconds to 5 seconds in War vs Sword only. Reduce the fury duration. Okay, so other boon duration reduction, basically. Reduce the resistance from mental defense, so shatter skill 4 grant boons and break allies out of stance, so you see the resistance duration almost halved. Then flow of time, increase the alacrity duration on ourselves from 0.75 to 1 second in War vs Sword only. And then we have stretched time. I don't understand much the change here. This trait no longer causes flow of time to affect nearby allies, so this is not AoE alacrity anymore, but still it now causes shattering to apply its boon to other allies. But I don't know if this boon is alacrity, as it doesn't say it was changed, but still this trait now applies might instead of alacrity in War vs Sword only. Like you see, stretched time, flow of time now affects grant alacrity to nearby allies when you summon a phantasm. So I guess no more alacrity. Maybe I am stupid. This trait now applies might. Okay, I guess you will not get more alacrity when you summon a phantasm, but you get might, and with this trait you can share this might. So I think the alacrity is dead on the Mesmer too, completely dead. I'm not really sure, maybe I misinterpreted this trait. Okay, then the next big change is not really big. Blade Song Harmony is the F1 on the Virtuoso, reduced the power coefficient. This was unnecessary, in my opinion, maybe. Virtuoso was already pretty slow and the skills are telegraphed, you can dodge them really easily. Then we have the F5 buff on the Virtuoso, more damage, as you can see here. 1000 Cuts is the elite skill from the Virtuoso. It launched some unblockable projectiles, but they were so small, you hit basically no one, people just could sidestep. I hope this projectile hitbox size is increased by a lot. Then Rain of Sword is just one utility skill. It was increased in the power coefficient by a small amount. I don't think this will make Virtuoso relevant at all. Maybe the Necromancer is dead now because of the alacrity removal, but still it can apply a lot of quickness and a lot of other boons. I think the Necromancer will be still relevant, but let's see the other classes. Okay, the Necromancer is pretty interesting. Let's start from the first War with War nerf. It's the Nightfall, the skill 4, which is the boon strip, pulsing bigger AoE each pulse. Increase the cooldown from 30 seconds to 40 seconds in War vs Sword only. This is a big change, like this skill previously was like 20 seconds at the start and then came to 30 seconds and now to 40 seconds. Greysword is kinda bad already in War vs Sword, the skills are so slow and you really need to be super close to enemies to do damage. And basically the skill 4 and the skill 5 were the only main part for which we could run Greysword, even on the Scourges, which were support. So I don't know if we will still see the Greysword in War vs Sword. I know we still have the pull, which is huge, and this skill is still strong, it's like another well. Maybe we will still keep going with the Greysword, but let's see the other changes. We have Devouring Darkness, which is the AoE Scepter skill. If you trait the trait on Curse's straight line, the cooldown from 18 seconds to 15 seconds in War vs Sword only. 3 seconds cooldown reduction, which is maybe playable. Maybe we will see Scepter on Scourges or Reaper, we don't know. Then we have an interesting buff on the Well of Suffering, a bit more of damage, which is nice. And then we have Spiteful Spirit, increase the number of boons removed from 1 to 2 in War vs World and PvP. But this skill already converted 2 boons if the enemies were below some 50% health. So basically whenever we enter Shroud, we remove 1 boon from enemies and convert it into condition. And if these enemies were on 50% health, we will remove an additional boon. So I'm not really sure what the change is here. Maybe we get 2 whenever we enter Shroud, and then 3 if we also hit enemies which are below 50% health, I don't know. Or maybe it's always 2, I don't know. This could be a big boon, in my opinion, a big buff, especially on Reapers or Harbinger or Core Necromancer, because the Shroud has like 10 seconds cooldown, while the Scourge is nerfed a lot on the Shroud and it has a big cooldown. Then we have Serpent Siphon from 30 seconds to 40 seconds, so is another boon removal and another barrier, Aegis, Torment, Regeneration nerf. So this is a big nerf for the Scourge together with the Nightfall. And then we have Sandstorm Shroud, increase the cooldown from 35 to 45 seconds. The skill no longer applies protection, so this is another big nerf to Scourge. And then we have Sand Cascade, which is the F3, which is the barrier one. Increase the cooldown from 18 seconds to 25 seconds in War vs Sword only. I mean, the support Scourge maybe was not killed because it has so many boon strips and barriers still, but still, I don't know. Nightfall nerf, Serpent Siphon nerf, Sandstorm Shroud nerfed, and they are not small nerfs, it's like 10 seconds cooldown, which is a lot. In a fight which maybe lasts 1 minute, 10 seconds is a lot. Sandstorm Shroud was nerfed, Sand Cascade was nerfed. I don't know, maybe we will see some power Necromancer build. My guess is maybe some Reaper with maybe the Scepter for corrupting from range, and also, I don't know, the Greatsword seems kinda dead. Maybe we can see like Scepter and the Focus, and Axe and the Focus, or some sword, or maybe the Spear, I don't know, not really sure. But the support Scourge seems pretty doomed, I'm not really sure, but the nerfs are quite consistent. Okay, the Ranger is one of the classes which I am most excited about, because let's get into it. Frost Spirit reduced the resistance duration from 4 seconds to 2 seconds, it's okay. And I mean, it previously gave 4 seconds of resistance with 20 seconds cooldown. It wasn't super good already. It was meta, I mean, you could play it on Druid, but Druid already wasn't really super meta. This resistance nerf, I mean, every class was nerfed, so I guess it's fair. This is a very big change. Instead, reduce the cooldown of pet swapping with a defeated pet from 60 seconds to 25 seconds in War vs Sword only. So if you used to play Druid or Untamed or any class on the Ranger which wasn't Soul Beast, you pretty much had your pet permanently dead because it ran into the enemies. It was one shot basically, and then you couldn't swap for like 60 seconds. You had to wait 60 seconds, which is 1 minute. I mean, it's a lot. Now 25 seconds is a lot more reasonable in my opinion, and it could maybe see something else going on for the Druid and maybe for the Untamed, which I will cover in a bit. Then we have this skill, the skill 3 from the Spear, which was already big damage, and it was buffed also in the secondary part if you have the skill 5 ready. And then we have Farsighted, okay, we don't really need this. Rejuvenating Tides, you see this is the skill 4 from the Celestial Avatar, no longer Might in War vs World and PvP, so it was nerfed. Also the skill 5 no longer applies Might. Eclipse, this trait now increases the amount of Astral Force gained per strike in addition to its previous effects, could be good. Grace of the Land, reduce the Might duration. So you see every boon was basically removed or reduced. Glyph of the Stars, this was super strong as a elite skill, increased the cooldown from 60 seconds to 75 seconds and reduced the revive amount per pulse from 8 to 5% in War vs World only. So maybe it's RIP on this skill, but we will see. It's still good to heal and to remove conditions from allies. And then we have the Untamed, which could be interesting. Exploding Spores. This skill now removes boons from enemies struck. Enemies can only have boons removed by this skill 1 per cast. I mean, it probably will remove only 1 boon from enemies, and it's okay, because this skill generates like 6 spores, so you can remove up to maybe like 18 boons from enemies. It's okay, but this trait change could be better if the spores changes, and so maybe removing the boons also applies to the spores you generate also with your skills. Like, as you might already know, most, if not all, the ambush skill on the Untamed can generate some spores under the enemies and they will explode, and we don't know if these spores also will remove boons from enemies or just this skill. If it is just this skill, it's not a really big change in my opinion, and not too impactful, but still it's better to have than not to have. Because Untamed has the potential to be a good class in melee, because it has a lot of damage, AoE damage, it's kinda tanky, it has mobility, it has blocks, it has survivability, but still it's a bit clunky to play, and it offers no boon strip, so like there is no reason at the moment to run, for example, an Untamed instead of a Dragon Hunter or a Reaper, because Dragon Hunter has better damage and is easier to play, and the Reaper has also a lot of boon strip. But if this change, as I mentioned, goes live, like the boons are removed also from the spore you generate with your weapon skills, this could be really interesting, and we could see maybe a DPS boon strip Untamed, which could be really strong in melee. Then we have 5% damage increase on the Blinding Outburst, which is the F2 I think on the let me see, sorry. Oh, it's unleash the ambush skills, deal more damage. Okay, this could be another 5% damage increase on your burst, on your unleashed skills, ambush skills. And then we have Vow of the Untamed, increase the outgoing damage modifier from 15 to 20 and incoming damage modifier from 10 to 15 War vs Sword only. This is another buff from like 5% damage increase, together with this one on the ambush skills. I mean, the Untamed has potential on this patch, but I'm not really sure. It all depends on this trait, in my opinion. The Revenant is another really interesting class, and let me explain to you why. Okay, basically we have some damage increase on Mender's Rebuke, which is the skill 2 from the staff. This is not really impactful, but still we have the auto attack on the sword, the first chain, the second chain, and the third chain, which was all buffed by a small fraction, which could be interesting, and I will tell you why in a second. So it's some damage increase on the auto attack on the sword. Then we have Inspiring Reinforcements. This is basically the rod from the Dwarf Legend, which applied the pulsing stability on the ground. The energy cost was increased from 30 to 40. This is not a really big nerf. It's a nerf, of course, but still the biggest part is increase the cooldown from 10 seconds to 15 seconds. So it's like increasing the cooldown by 50%. Previously, basically, you would swap to Dwarf, cast Inspiring Reinforcement, and then you could wait the end of the legendary cooldown, and you could cast it again, and then you could swap to the other legend. Now you need to wait another 5 seconds, and you need to stand on the Dwarf Legend 5 seconds, and the Dwarf Legend doesn't provide a lot except the Inspiring Reinforcement, to be honest. And then we have Protective Solace, is basically the AoE projectile reduction on the legendary Ventari. Increase the upkeep cost from 6 to 8, so this is much more expensive now, and I mean, we didn't already play Ventari Revenant a lot except in some Vindicator builds, but not many played Vindicator anymore lately, even if it's still a great healing class, maybe the best healing class in the game for pure healing. Pain Absorption, this was a big nerf. This skill now has a 5 seconds cooldown in War vs Sword only. Previously it had like half a second. I know the energy cost was 30, so you could not really spam it, but still, as you can see, they are trying to reduce resistance and resolution, and this is why maybe some conditions build could work more now, like Immobilize Soul Beast or Untamed. Something could come up, in my opinion, because the resistance was nerfed a lot on every class, and so it's not really guaranteed that the Immobilize will not land because of the resistance. Reposting Shadows, we don't need this. Okay, Impossible Odds, this is basically from Shiro, the assassin. You press it and you will get the maintenance cost, of course, on yourself, but your attacks will do additional damage, and you also get movement speed and the strike delay for the additional damage. Basically, it's not additional damage, sorry. It's just an additional strike which deals a decent amount of damage. Previously, this was almost unplayable because you had like 8 of maintenance cost, but now this was changed and now it only has 6, so you can keep this up much longer, and maybe this could work, maybe with the sword out attack. If you are super close to the enemies, if you are playing in melee and you are just out attacking with your sword with Impossible Odds, in my opinion, if the enemy doesn't move too much, you can go unleash a lot of damage. I'm not sure, maybe I'm just dreaming, but it could work if you are super close to the enemies and you are just casting every skill. Maybe on the Revenant, on some DPS build, maybe the Vindicator possibly, which is the best to do damage. You could run Vindicator with Shiro as a legend and out attack with your sword and Impossible Odds, so you will not consume a lot of energy and still do maybe more damage than other classes which are pressing every button. You just press one and kill your enemies, but you need to be super melee on the enemy because as you can see the range on these skills is 130, which is ridiculous. It's super melee. It doesn't get more melee than this, but one can dream. And then we have this buff, reduce the energy cost from the elite skill, which is an AoE stun on the Shiro legend, and also the damage multiplier from 0.01 to 20. I mean, this is a huge buff, but still this skill is pretty slow to cast, and also it's good for the stun aspect, but with this change maybe it gets some damage, some burst damage if it lands. I don't know if this is a big change or not. Usually in World vs World and PvP the CCs are like 0 damage, but this one was changed. I'm not really sure why and how it will work, but maybe it can be really strong. I'm not really sure. And then we have the big nerf, another big nerf on the Renegade. The alacrity was removed. Basically now we get the very useful resolution, and so basically the Renegade was nerfed because we played this legend, the Mallix one, which granted resistance, and Boon Strip. The Boon Strip is still there. The resistance was nerfed by a lot because now we have 5 seconds cooldown. We have the nerf on the stability here, on the Inspiring Reinforcement, and then we have the alacrity removed. So I'm not really sure if the Renegade will still be played because we had almost nothing left from it. Maybe it's just better to play something else. I'm not really sure. Maybe it will still be good. And then we have another small nerf for the support Vindicator, which was not really popular a lot, and also this is not a big nerf. It's okay, I guess. It's just to reduce the amount of boons in World vs World. Okay, let's quickly cover the Thief. I say it quickly because I already read this, of course, and I know there is nothing impactful for World vs World Zerg fights. I know many people will be happy with the nerfs to the Thief for roaming, but I don't cover the roaming aspects, so let me skip. I know there are some changes on the Shroud, on the Spectre, which could be interesting, but you see the skill now heals, remove conditions, grants barrier, okay, but how much? Without the numbers, I cannot really judge. So the Thief is a bit in a standby phase now, so we will wait for the official release to read every number and every change properly. And then the Warrior could see maybe some more usage, even more usage on the Berserker. Okay, let's start from the Banner of Tactics. Reduce the resistance duration from 2 seconds to 1 second, the World vs World only, so this is another big nerf in the resistance aspect. Previously with some boon duration you could have permanent resistance because the pulses of resistance of these skill was 3 seconds. Now even if maximum boon duration you can apply 2 seconds of resistance instead of 4 seconds, and every 3 seconds, so there is always some downtime in resistance. Previously you had like overflowing resistance on yourself and on your allies. Okay, here Rampage is for PvE. Okay, dual wielding, this could be really interesting. The attack speed bonus from this trait now stacks with other attack speed bonuses, meaning that it will stack with the quickness and the berserk. You see now the bonus from this trait does not stack, is 20% increased attack speed. Now with this change on the 11th of February it will stack, so we will get additional attack speed, and also when wielding a main hand weapon in your offhand, this trait will now also heal the user when they critically strike. This heal is improved if the struck enemy is bleeding. So I imagine basically on some DPS Berserker you could run Axe, maybe. The Axe I think has the best auto attack as a main hand weapon, and just one hand weapon I mean. With this trait you get a lot of healing, I guess, because you always critically strike. I don't know how much the healing will be and how impactful will be. It's basically the same, it's a bit of a gamble like the Revenant. You need to be on melee to benefit from this trait, but the attack speed is 20% more. Like you have quickness, you have berserker mod, so you also get 20% more from dual wielding. I think your auto attacks can be pretty scary. but your F1 on the axe is not really strong. Maybe we will still run dagger, maybe I am dreaming, because you need to be melee to out attack. I'm not really sure about this, but this looks promising. We will see on the field, on the battleground. Then the other changes, okay, this one is pretty good for TPS Spellbreaker if it finds some place. Break enchantment, increase the power coefficient, basically it doubled the power coefficient on the break enchantment, which is the utility skill which removes some boons and also dealing some decent damage. And here is another buff on the Spellbreaker, increase the duration of the elite skill, the bubble, from 4 seconds to 5 seconds, and increase the power coefficient by more than the double power coefficient. I mean, it's okay, the damage was already bad, I know it was buffed by a bit, but still, it's better to have than not to have. And then we got the alacrity removed from the Bladestorm, because every alacrity source was removed in War vs Sword. Let's take a quick look at the relics. Might and Fury to nearby allies, increase strike damage to low health enemies. Maybe this could be good depending on how much the damage is, but I guess it's like 10%. Protection and magnetic aura, maybe this could find some place on Tempest or Catalyst builds. Fire aura, when using a healing skill, fire aura now increases your outgoing strike damage. This could be good for maybe DPS Tempests, if that is a thing. I mean, I know it's a thing, but if it's just 5% damage increase, it's completely useless. Okay, laser disc on elite skill, shocking aura on elite skill, maybe it could find some place on Tempest, but I doubt it, especially after the daggers nerfs. Summon a golem, summon a jagged, okay, these ones are pretty useless in War vs Sword Zergs. Okay, I guess this is all. Oh, actually, Relic of Vampirism, siphon life from nearby foes when you use a healing skill, restore a portion of your maximum health upon killing a foe. I know in War vs Sword you kill a lot of enemies, but basically you have like 2 or 3 healers per party, and I don't think you really need the healing from this relic, which was mentioned in the streaming to be like 10% of your maximum HP. So if you start killing enemies a lot, it means the fight is already over and won, so you don't really need the additional healing from this, in my opinion. This was all for today's video. Please consider liking and subscribing, and also joining the channel to have some more previews of my videos and also some more benefits from the channel. Let me know in the comments your thoughts. I know this is a long video of only me just talking, but I wanted to share what I think on the next meta which is coming. Maybe nothing will change, maybe something will change. I think the most promising things are basically the Necromancers, which was buffed in some aspects while other classes was nerfed, some Necromancer DPS build, I mean. And then maybe the Untamed on the DPS build. I'm really curious about this. It all depends on this trait, as I already explained. It could be a DPS boon strip with a big burst on melee. It could be like a better Reaper, but let's see if it happens. Maybe the Revenant could find some damage increase, some DPS build with impossible odds while in melee and out attacking with your sword or greatsword or whatever weapon we will run. And then we have maybe the Warrior on the out attack, also with the dual wielding trait. Sorry, I didn't find it. Okay, this was enough talking. Sorry to bother you. See you into the next video and have a great night. Bye bye.